So, welcome everyone to our presentation today. My name is Jocelyn Hong, and I am pleased to be the moderator for this discussion of the Valor Medals Review by the George S. Robb Centre for the Study of the Great War at Park University. I come to this project as the daughter of a veteran, a public policy advocate, and an Asian American activist. I am honored to help tell the story of Valor Medal veterans for our nation and on behalf of their descendants. Today, we share with you what the researchers at the Robb Centre are doing to honor those veterans and to let you know how you can take an active role in changing the course of history for these deserving soldiers. I am currently the chair in Washington, D.C. of an affiliation of Asian American and Pacific Islander federal public policy advocates. In fact, today we are releasing a statement signed by 60 former administration officials from both sides of the aisle denouncing some of the AAPI hate that you may have been seeing. Our group became interested in the Valor Medals Review because of legislation passed in 1996, sponsored by my Hawaii State Senator Dan Akaka, to review all of the Japanese Americans who fought in World War II, really focusing on the act of heroism by Senator Dan Inouye, who lost his arm in combat. Despite the fact that Senator Inouye had served in the Senate since Hawaii was a territory in the 1970s, none of his colleagues knew about his act of valor because he never discussed it. Because as we have found out, and what many of you know, the day someone is commemorated with the Medal of Honor, it is usually the worst day of their life. The Medal of Honor is the United States government's highest and most prestigious military decoration that recognizes those American soldiers who distinguish themselves by acts of valor. According to the Medal of Honor Historical Society, there have been only 3,526 medals of honor designated since its creation. World War I is the very last war that we need to review to ensure that all of our heroes are recognized. In 1990, Congress designated March 25th annually as National Medal of Honor Day, and today's celebration is in honor of this day. Today, we are going to highlight all of the extraordinary work taking place. Please stand by for a short video.
George Robb was a 1912 graduate of Park College at the time and went on to get a master's degree at Columbia University in New York in history, came back to the state of Kansas, worked as a postmaster in small towns in Kansas, but then was called up to serve during World War I.
To put it bluntly, on the Medal of Honor recommendation, he fought gallantly, but underneath his recommendation, there was an African American for doing essentially the same actions, for the same honor, the same valor. And based solely on being African American, he did not receive the Medal of Honor while George S. Robb did.
The Valor Medals Review Project is a systematic review in which minority service members who served in World War I are researched and documented to determine if their race or religion was an impact as to whether or not they received the Medal of Honor for certain actions. The individuals we look at received the second highest Valor Medal of the United States or the highest French medal, but either by accident or by choice were denied the Medal of Honor. This is over 100 years of history that has been forgotten. It is our job to recover it and to, as accurately and respectfully as possible, recount those as incidents to talk about in a modern sense.
As a veteran of the United States Army, I take this project a little bit more personally in the sense of engagement. There's a connection between military brethren, and I feel it's my calling to honor these members.
Finding descendants is the most important aspect of this project. Hearing from individuals how wonderful their fathers and grandfathers and great uncles were, regardless of their military career, regardless if their act of valor moves them up to the Medal of Honor in the end. We will never forget the interaction that we have had with those individuals.
It's our way of honoring our veterans, because honor never expires, support for veterans never expires, valor never expires.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to introduce Shane B. Smead. He is the appointed interim president in December 2020 of Park University. Before his recent appointment, President Smead served as Park's vice president and chief operating officer. In that role, he provided strategic and tactical leadership to more than half of the university staff in the areas of management, financial aid, student engagement, athletics, and campus center operations. In addition, he was responsible for approximately 16,000 students annually, including 10,000 active duty, National Guard, Reserve, veteran, and military family students. President Smead came to Park University in 2015, attracted by the diversity of its student body and its Kansas City metropolitan location. When he first stepped out onto the picturesque Parkville, Missouri campus, he stood next to the historic Mach Hall and knew that Park would become his professional home. President Smead leads a university that celebrates diversity and serves a growing student body, earning recognition from both its faculty and staff. He believes that Park's motto, Fide et Labor, which is Latin for faith and work, can inspire students, faculty, and staff to achieve all of their goals. President Smead has more than 20 years of experience in higher education. He earned an MBA and Bachelor of Science degree in Business Operations. He is currently pursuing a Master of Arts degree in Student Personnel Administration and a doctoral degree in Higher Ed Administration, both from St. Louis University. He currently serves on the board of the Command and General Staff College Foundation, and he and his wife, Angela, have 3 children. Please welcome President Shane Smead.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And again, thanks for the kind introduction and for your assistance in hosting this wonderful virtual event today. Yesterday, our nation commemorated the 30th National Medal of Honor Day, a day for honoring the heroism and the sacrifice of 3,507 recipients from across the United States. Park University proudly acknowledges 2 alumni who are Medal of Honor recipients: Lieutenant George S. Robb, who was honored for valiant service in France in 1918 during the First World War, and Captain Louis Millet, honored for valiant service in South Korea in 1951. Now, while the United States military has conducted systematic reviews of the Medal of Honor awards to service members from underrepresented populations in World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, subsequent American wars, no such review has occurred for minority service members of the First World War until now. The George S. Robb Center for Study of the Great War at Park University is home of the Valor Medals Reviews Project and Task Force, a team of researchers and historians performing a systematic investigation into African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Jewish American, Native American veterans who, in spite of deserving deeds, may have been unjustly denied the high-level valor awards due to bias or discrimination or confusion sparked by the changing standards surrounding the Medal of Honor during the First World War. Of the 121 World War I service members who received the Medal of Honor, only 7 were from underrepresented populations. Only 7. 4 were Jewish Americans, 2 African Americans, 1 Hispanic American. There were no Asian Americans or no Native Americans who received that. 3 of those individuals received the Medal of Honor more than 75 years after their cited valorous action. The center and project have the responsibility to show evidence of each service member's qualifications of a posthumous Medal of Honor and to accurately represent their respective service history. In meeting the current day standards for the Medal of Honor, the Valor Medals Reviews team creates an in-depth report of the service member's action of merit that received the Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, or the French Croix de Guerre with Palm. Simultaneously, the research team is conducting a genealogical review to find any living descendants who oftentimes can offer information about the individual not attainable from the historical documents. Once each service member's narrative is completed, it is forwarded to the review boards to determine the eligibility of the service member to potentially move to the recommendation boards of the appropriate secretary, then the Department of Defense, and finally the President of the United States. Park University is proud to be home of the Valor Medals Review. I personally invite you to join us in this important endeavor. You will hear more from my colleague Nathan Mardick regarding the opportunities to both partner and invest. Please remember, there is no expiration on Valor. Again, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, President Smead. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Dayton. He is the Executive Director of the United States World War I Centennial Commission. Prior to this role, Dan had a long history of government service, including the U.S. Naval History and Heritage Command, where he led public affairs efforts for the Navy's commemoration of the bicentennial of the War of 1812 and the Star-Spangled Banner. However, Dan also had business experience in radio and television station ownership. Having been a news producer for NBC and WCBS in New York, he built radio stations from the ground up in several states, managing a $30 million group operation. Dan was also a member of the U.S. Navy Reserve, where he was the commanding officer of a public affairs unit that provided key support to the U.S. Strategic Command in Omaha, Nebraska. He is a member of the National Academy of Television Arts and the Sciences and the National Press Club, and he is also an honors graduate from Emerson College in Boston. Please welcome Mr. Dan Dayton.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Mr. President, all gathered here, thanks so much for having me today. And I'm just so delighted that you are carrying on the work that's been endorsed by the World War I Centennial Commission. The commission was signed into law in 2013 and did a number of commemorative activities around the centennial of the war. And started in 2017, but obviously then the centennial of the armistice was the big day in 2018. But in that process, it became very clear that there was no national World War I memorial in the nation's capital. There is a DC memorial that commemorates the service of those who were residents of the District of Columbia, but there was no national memorial. So we set out to do that. And the image that you see behind me, in fact, is a camera. There it is. That shows the construction just being finished up on this wonderful memorial that we will be doing first flag raising on April the 16th, and I'll share with you all the link for that. You can watch that. Then the sculpture will take a little bit longer. The sculpture is called A Soldier's Journey. Here you see it. It is 58 feet long. It will be the largest bronze bas-relief in the Western Hemisphere when it's finished. And it tells the story. If you look at the little character all the way on the left there, that's a sculptor in a blue shirt. So you get a sense of the scale of this piece. And this piece tells the story of a soldier reading from left to right as he leaves his home, leaves his family, meets his fellow warriors, goes into battle, falls in battle, is lifted up by nurses, experiences traumatic stress syndrome, actually, and what was called shell shock back in the day, and then comes marching home, because at that time, when soldiers came home from World War I, they thought they had won the battle and that the world would be saved for peace, which regrettably didn't turn out that way, as you so well know. So a remarkable story, which also tells the story of a nation. But the important thing in here, and the reason that the commission felt so strongly about endorsing this Valor Medals project, is for the reasons that you've heard in the wonderful little video. Congratulations for that. It was nicely done, and tells the story about how we left people behind, and that's not who we are as a country, to leave people behind. So that was very meaningful to our chairman, Terry Hamby, and to all of those commissioners that were appointed by the president and by members of Congress. all felt unanimous. That was a unanimous vote. It's the easiest vote we ever took in this commission, was to support your work. So thank you so very much for that. My congratulations on what you've gotten done, and we follow your work with great interest.
Thank you so much, Dan. Next, I am thrilled to introduce you to an extraordinary woman, Dr. Emma Lepsansky-Werner, Emeritus Professor of History at Haverford College. Her father, Dr. Thomas Edward Jones, is one of the distinguished veterans that the Robb Centre researched and that we want to profile today. Dr. Jones was an extraordinary man. He became a medical doctor at age 32 out of a class of just 36, and then volunteered to serve as one of 100 African-American physicians in World War I at age 37. Dr. Jones received the Distinguished Service Cross, the French Croix de Guerre, and the French Victory Medal for his bravery on September 27, 1918. That day, he went into an open area under heavy machine gun fire to care for a wounded soldier. While dressing the wound runner, a machine gun bullet passed between his arms and chest, and a man was killed a few yards from him. Dr. Jones later became a hospital director, performing successful heart surgery in 1939, and used his income to build up all Black communities through community investment. After retiring, he became a gentleman dairy farmer, acquiring land in Maryland so he could vote, and then much later became a father at age 65. For his actions on the battlefield, Dr. Thomas Edward Jones has qualified for investigation within the Valor Medals Review. His daughter, who honors us today with her presence, Dr. Emma Lepsansky-Werner, carries on the exemplary tradition of her father. She is Haverford College's first Black woman full professor, and possibly its first full Black professor of any gender. Her teaching career also includes Temple University, the University of Pennsylvania, the Community College of Philadelphia, and Princeton. She has served as a consultant to dozens of museums in the United States, the Caribbean, and England. Her work for the Delta Ministry of the National Council of Churches in Mississippi, including helping the Poor People's Corporation set up independent Black craft cooperatives to free local Black Mississippians to vote without jeopardy of losing their jobs, was a real milestone as well. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Emma Lepsansky-Werner.
Hello, everyone. It's really interesting and a little humbling to be here. When Timothy Westcott first came to me with this question a couple of years ago, even as a historian, I thought, why are we looking backward? What is there to be doing looking backward? But now I am taken by the points you've made through the connections you've made to a national platform, that valor never expires. I like that idea, that valor never expires, and I am grateful and proud to know the people who are working to make sure that this doesn't happen to people in the future. So thank you, Robb Centre, for the work you're doing. And we're going to go forward with some slides, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you see here. This is my father in 1912, his intern year at Howard University. And he had come to Washington, D.C. out of his home in Lynchburg, Virginia, had joined the National Guard as part of his sense of being part of an American world, and very proud of that. And by 1912, he had finished medical school and was headed into internship. He then went to work for Freedman's Hospital in Washington, D.C., and stayed there until 1917, when he volunteered, and we need the next slide, he volunteered, there he is, to go off to Iowa. It's an interesting notion to think of him in Iowa as in boot camp, because the Buffalo Soldiers, of which he felt connected as part of the tradition, the Buffalo Soldiers were leftovers from the 190,000 men who served in the Civil War and who, after the Civil War, because they had already won the battle to have equal pay, they decided to stay in the Army. And off they went in a sad and ironic move to help drive Native Americans off their land. My father was at that point married to a person who was part Native American. I don't think that in the 1880s people thought about that. And there's so many complexities to American history. But anyway, so it was. The Buffalo Soldiers got their name in the late 1880s because they were all bundled up in fur coats to keep warm on the plains. And the Native Americans described them as looking like buffaloes because they were brown and had these furry coats. My father thought of himself as being proud of that tradition. And later on, we'll show you a slide of him wearing the insignia of the Buffalo Soldiers on his arm. But let's go on to the next slide. There he is, in training in Iowa. At some point during that training in Iowa, October of 1917, saying, "Dear son, I'm writing to tell you that I am dying. I hope that you will be able to see you. I wanted very much to be able to see you and to shake your hand." And I think it's so sweet that she describes it as shaking his hand, not as hugging him. But he was a military soldier, and the family respected that. And so his mother wanted to shake his hand. He took a 10-day leave of absence, was granted that, and went home to Lynchburg, and indeed was there to be with his mother as she passed into the next world. But he also, as part of his experience in Lynchburg, Virginia, was interested in animals and learned about horses and livestock management, and that's going to return to his life later on in his life. Let's go on. They're going to stop me if I keep wandering too much into my father's life. He started a diary, and there's a penny there beside that photograph of the first page of his diary that tells you a little bit about the size of the diary. It fit in his pocket. He carried it with him all the way through his tour of duty from August 1917, which is what you can see there, through to his return home in Washington, D.C., which is where he lived then as part of Freedman's Hospital and where I grew up. He returned home, and when he did, the congregation of his church, and he would soon marry the minister's daughter, who was my mother, but that's another story. The congregation of the church stood up and in unison sang, "Praise God from whom all blessings flow." And he felt that his neighborhood and his community had appreciated his sacrifice. And he recorded that in this diary. He recorded many other things in this diary as well, including how exciting it was to treat a French baby. The French people were glad to see him and glad to see his skills. He treated a French baby. When he got this medal, the Croix de Guerre, French women came out to the street and threw roses. He was very excited about the work he was able to do and very proud of it. Next slide. I should probably say about that diary that in the diary he does not record the days for which he got the Medal of Honor and for which my mother later told me he came home shell-shocked. On those days from September into the middle of October, he records every day, but he says something like, "Nothing unusual. Tired, cold, hungry. Marched all day, exhausted, little to eat." Those days in there were hard, and he records them only in monosyllables. Eventually, however, and this is 1918, we see him in his full dress with his medals on his chest and the Buffalo Soldier insignia on his arm. He was proud of both of those things. He came home and a portraitist made a portrait of him. I don't know whether he hired the person or whether the person volunteered. But in any case, that portrait, which is about 2 by 4, it's a big portrait, hung in our living room the entire time I grew up. And then when my mother died, it hung in my sister's living room until my sister died in 2013. And the portrait now hangs in my niece's dining room. So there's a certain appreciation of him, not just by his church, but by his family as well. He didn't talk much about the war for reasons that that Jocelyn Hong has mentioned to us. I'm sure that much of it was painful, but sometimes he would do things that reminded us of his wartime. And one of his favorite songs to sing to us, and he sang to us a lot, was the one that ends, "'Neath the war's great curse stands the Red Cross nurse. She's the rose of no man's land. There's a rose that grows in no man's land, and it's wonderful to see. Though it's sprayed with tears, it will live for years in my garden of memories. It's the one red rose a soldier knows. It's the work of 'neath the war's great curse stands the Red Cross nurse. She's the rose of no man's land. Next slide, please. Is that the end of that? Okay. After he went home, he went to work at Freedman's Hospital, and this is a photograph of, again, people who were appreciating his skills. This is Harold Ickes, who was head of the Department of Interior under the Roosevelt administration, and he was my father's superior, his boss, when he was head of that hospital. And during my father's tenure, a tuberculosis annex was built. And this is the picture of Ickes and Eleanor Roosevelt standing with my dad as that building is dedicated. And this was about 1938. Okay, last one. I've taken up a lot of your time. Next slide. Okay. My father died in 1958. I was not quite 13 years old, and I had spent a fair amount of my youth going with him to various events of the Army Navy Legion of Valor. And one of the interesting ironies of all this is that by the 1950s, these organizations were apparently desegregated, because I didn't know that the Army was segregated until after I learned about that in college. My father didn't tell me, and the boat he went to Europe on he was the doctor for that boat, and he records some of the illnesses, as he says, various kinds of things, white and colored. So apparently there's some complications to how segregated the Army was. In any case, in 1958, when he died, I remember sitting on the reviewing stand watching the horse go down Pennsylvania Avenue toward Arlington Cemetery with its boots turned backward in the saddle. It's a powerful memory for a 12-year-old. So I'm grateful that this crew of you people at Park University are making sure that when someone gives this kind of sacrifice and dedication to our country, they get the recognition they deserve. And we may have to go backward to get it. I want to finish with a poem, which is one of my favorites, and it's called The Bridge Builder. An old man walking a lone highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm, vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream was no fear for him, but he turned, when safe on the other side, and built a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," said a fellow pilgrim near, "you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build this bridge in the evening tide?" The builder lifted his old gray head. "Good friend, in the path I have come," he said, There followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been not for me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. I think of the Robb Centre as bridge builders for my nephews and your nephews and their grandchildren. And I'm glad that you're getting the support you need to do it.
Thank you so much. I had such a good time getting to know you and hearing about all of the stories with your family. Such an impressive group. So I hope that at some point, the documents you shared with me could be made public in some fashion because it is such an impressive family. So thank you so much, Dr. Emma. And next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Timothy C. Westcott. He is the Associate Professor of History and the Director of the George S. Robb Center for the Study of the Great War. Dr. Westcott has over 30 years of experience in secondary and higher education. He joined the staff at Park University in 1999, and he is a recipient of the Patriot Award for the Department of Defense. He's also served in the Marine Corps, both overseas and stateside, with the 3rd Battalion Marine Corps Reserve in Omaha, Nebraska, and in Oakland Park, Kansas. He was honorably discharged with the rank of Staff Sergeant, and during his Marine Corps service, he is awarded the Navy Achievement Medal twice, the Good Conduct Medal twice, the Meritorious Mass twice, and Certificate of Commendation. He was nationally recognized as the U.S. Marine Corps Reservist of the Year in 1986. Dr. Westcott holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Secondary Education from Avila University, Master of Arts degree in History from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and doctoral degree in History from the Union Institute and University in Cincinnati, Ohio. You've seen him in the opening video, so please welcome Dr. Timothy Westcott.
Thank you, Jocelyn, for hosting this chat, and to all of our virtual guests today. It is wonderful to see some of our donors, old friends, and plenty of new faces. A special thanks to our presenters today, and particularly to our 20 descendants who have continuously shown their support. You are the reason we come to work every day, to honor the service of your fathers, grandfathers, and uncles. George Robb was a 1912 graduate of then Park College. He completed his master's degree at Columbia University in New York, and then returned to Kansas for an early career in education, and then following the war, postal service. In the spring of 1914, excuse me, he volunteered for military service and completed officer candidate school at Fort Sheridan. He was assigned to the 93rd Infantry Division, 369th Infantry Regiment, famously known as the Harlem Hellfighters. Robb was active in the Champagne-Marne Defensive and the Meuse-Argonne Offensive during his service. Robb received the Medal of Honor for his actions near Chicholt, France on the 29-30 September 1918. Robb's service was noted by General John J. Pershing in his list of 100 heroes of World War I. He returned to Kansas after the war, eventually being elected the Kansas State Auditor continuously from 1935 to 1960. The George S. Robb Center was established in 2005 by two of Robb's grandsons, Harry and Andy Walty. The Robb Center currently has two primary initiatives: the Great War Institute, which is our educational and community component, and the Valor Medals Review Project. The Valor Medals Review investigates, as we've noted, African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Jewish American, and Native American service members who received the Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, and/or the Croix de Guerre with Palm, or have a documented Medal of Honor recommendation, which may have been downgraded to racial or religious discrimination. And just a side note, we have approximately 7 of those actual documented individuals that were recommended but have been downgraded. And Josh Weston mentioned one of those in the video between George Robb and Sergeant William A. Butler. The Robb Center has until 2025 to perform each service member's review in preparation for a potential recommendation to the Department of Defense and appropriate secretary. As with any project of this nature, there is a team of individuals that perform multiple tasks. I am so honored, and I truly believe Park University is very honored to have 2 individuals that work daily in the Robb Center to provide the information we need. One of those is Miss Ashlyn Weber, who is the Associate Director, and Mr. Josh Weston, who's our Senior Military Analyst. Ms. Weber.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We are so excited that you're here, and we've been looking forward to speaking with you all today. My name is Ashlyn Weber. I'm the Associate Director for the George S. Robb Center. I began working on this project during my undergrad here at Park several years ago, and when I graduated, was hired on full-time. My primary job has been establishing the list of individuals who qualify for this review, maintaining their files and information within each group's database, and tracking them through time. I also have the pleasure of overseeing our high school and college interns who have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to spend time with these service members and establish the building blocks of being future historians. Once each service member has been found, Dr. Westcott and I have the great pleasure of speaking with any surviving descendants who often can offer a personal account of their loved one that we so rarely have the opportunity to experience, especially with the type of files that we collect. The service member is then handed over to Joshua Weston, who tracks them on the battlefield.
Greetings, everybody. It's good to see you here today. My name is Joshua Weston. I'm the Senior Military Analyst at the George S. Robb Center. I'm also a junior at Park University studying history and have been working with this project since its inception. Once a service member is handed to me, I research their divisional and regimental history, as well as the individuals themselves. In meeting modern Medal of Honor criteria, I collect this information that painstakingly details each service member's engagement down to the hour. I include information such as the enemy provisions, the longitude, the latitude, the weather, the terrain, and other various elements, and its connection to the individual's actions. As a U.S. Army veteran myself, I feel it's my duty to honor my brethren through working on this historic undertaking. In doing so, I feel that I'm supporting my brothers and sisters in arms, both past and present, because I deeply believe that support for veterans never expires and that valor never expires. If anyone has questions for me, please feel free to type them in the chat during the Q&A session at the end of the meeting. The Robb Center as a whole thanks you for being with us today, and your support is absolutely essential to the success of this project.
Thank you so much. Nathan Martique is the Chief Advancement Officer for Park University. He joined the university as an Associate Vice President for Development in 2012 and was quickly appointed Chief Advancement Officer later in 2018. In this role, he leads efforts to maintain quality constituent data, increase donor development, and strengthen alumni engagement. Nathan led the successful campaign for the first new construction in 25 years of an academic structure at the university, the Robert W. Plaster Free Enterprise Center. Nathan has 18 years of experience in nonprofit development and leadership. And prior to joining Park, he served in higher education development roles at Northwest Missouri State University, William Jewell College, and the University of Missouri in Columbia. In the social services sector, he launched the Hillcrest Transitional Housing Program that supports homeless individuals in Kansas City, Kansas. He is a first-generation college student earning a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing from Northwest Missouri State and a Master of Arts in Communication and Leadership from Park University. He currently serves on the Leadership Council for St. Michael's Veterans Center, and please welcome Nathan Martique.
Jocelyn, thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to be with you today. Again, I want to thank everyone for taking time to join us to learn more about the Valor Medals Review Project. Working closely with the Robb Centre team and my colleague, Lorraine Moore, I'm focused on helping bring exposure to the effort and recruiting invested partners. While I did not serve in the military myself, military service is a part of my family history, and the importance and generational impact of valor is deeply personal. I believe it is imperative that service members are recognized for their history-altering actions of heroism. Park University is the proud home of this important endeavor, but no task this monumental can be done alone. The Valor Medals Review Project would not be possible without the many partners stepping up to in support of these amazing service members. We remain grateful for our key endorsements from the VFW, American Legion, and World War I Centennial Commission, which, along with multiple VSOs, helped with the legislative process, a very, very critical first step. We continue to bring financial partners on board as well. We are most grateful for our individual donors and our major financial partners. We received early financial support from the World War I Centennial Commission, and we thank Dan and all those commissioners, as well as the local community partners here in Kansas City, VFW and UMB. Our national partners, the Robert R. McCormick Foundation and Pritzker Military Museum and Library, have joined with specific investments in the research process, including digitization of records, publications, and even support for our student researchers. A very special thank you to our financial partners and donors, some of which have joined us for the roundtable today. As you've heard, the scope of this project is significant. I want to remind everyone that while time and distance can separate us all, the Valor Medals Review Project, more than 100 years in waiting, is about individual soldiers serving a nation that in some cases denied to recognize their valor. You're invited. You are absolutely invited to join us in this effort to support each and every service member that stood strong for us and for the free world. Thank you again. Jocelyn, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today to learn more about the Robb Centre. I was thrilled that you were able to hear the story of Dr. Thomas Edward Jones and see at least one example of the heroes this team works to research every day. We are grateful to his daughter, Dr. Letansky Werner, for bringing her dad's story to life. Thank you to all of our speakers, and especially to Dr. Timothy Westcott, Ashlyn Weber, and Joshua Weston for your service to our nation and our community. Thank you for researching history so that our nation's future can be complete. This work requires painstaking time and research, and it's not possible without your help. So please give us your contributions to continue this vital work. And can you please click on the link in the chat box and help us bring this word to other friends and family and corporations. We want this to be the beginning of a relationship with each of you. This meeting launches a series of conversations that we look forward to having with you throughout the year. So I hope that you have enjoyed learning about the Robb Centre as much as we have enjoyed highlighting our work. And so now we're going to turn to some Q&A. As this part of our program. So you can either raise your hand, put some questions in the chat box, but we're happy to answer some questions about this work. And so maybe I'll start it off. Someone had asked, how many service members have you qualified for review?
We have qualified 204 service members. Of that group, 99 are Jewish Americans, 73 are African Americans, 1 is Asian American, 10 are Hispanic American, and 21 are Native American.
Does this include service members for only one branch or multiple branches?
No, so that's one of the most common questions we get. Is it only the United States Army? It is not. It is any individual of these 5 minority groups who received a Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, Croix de Guerre with Palm, or has a Medal of Honor recommendation. So 192 are from the United States Army, so a vast majority. 5 are from the United States Marine Corps. 1 is from the United States Navy Air Corps. 3 are United States Army Air Corps, Air Squadron. We didn't have the United States Air Force just yet. And 3 are United States Navy.
Okay. I'm going to ask a favor. Can you take off the PowerPoint right now so that we can see? A lot of people have their video on, so maybe there could be some interesting chats with everybody. Because we've got Dr. Lapsansky here, Werner. We still have Dan with us, and we've got President Smead. And so I think that if anybody has, I see Lauren Christensen has a question. Do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask it? Can you unmute?
Thank you, Jocelyn. I just have a question about the process, the length of it, and when you would anticipate that these men would be reviewed and they would actually receive the Medal of Valor.
The process is lengthy. It can take anywhere from 3 to 9 months on an individual. You know, part of the issue is the amount of records. Currently, because of COVID, the National Archives are closed. So there's no current means to acquire the service members' records from the Personnel Center in St. Louis. We have a great working relationship with them, but they are currently not open. So it has delayed in some extent that data that we would need. Now, we've been very blessed that some of the smaller county, local, but also state museums have reopened that we can acquire. The process at the center is we will go through the entire data of an individual. We create what we call a template that then is moved from us to a nominating committee of all military personnel. That committee is made up of individuals that have served our country, but it's also a very diverse group. They are the individuals that will sort of tell us to move someone further into the process, or in their opinion, there may not be enough information to warrant further movement up to the secretary. Once we move a recommendation to the appropriate secretary, it is basically out of our hands. And if anyone's here, as you well know, it can take 2 to 3 years for ultimately a decision to be made. And in our case, descendants would be possibly the recipient of the Medal of Honor by the President of the United States.
Okay, so Dr. Lapsansky Werner actually has a question. Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay, can I now be heard? I'm seeing faces on the screen, and I'd love to have the people who are descendants of World War I Valor people introduce themselves. Do we have time for that?
Maybe they could do a reaction too. I think we have time.
Okay.
I think it's hard because we're on a couple screens. Maybe you guys can put your names.
Chris and Suki waved, but I don't know who you are. Tell us about yourselves.
Oh,
I am the
Hi. Oh,
granddaughter of George Gross, who was a recipient of the Distinguished Cross. He's under review. I was brought in by my cousin right below me, Janet.
show us,
okay.
okay. I'm Jenny Stopani, and these are my sisters, Stacy, Suki, and Gloria. We are descendants of Marcelino Serna, World War I hero, and he's up for review as well.
Okay.
Am I guessing that Laura Key is also, and her mom Beatrice? Do you want to introduce yourself? And you have to unmute yourself.
I should be used to that. I'm Laura Key, and my aunt is Beatrice Key. Beatrice Key is the daughter of Sing Key, who's in review. You said one Asian, so maybe he's the one.
Oh, okay.
So I was alive when my grandfather was alive too, but my aunt is here, and I'm so honored that she was able to figure this out, and she's a great Zoom expert now.
Laura and Beatrice, yes, it is your descendant, and we are so glad that all of our descendants are here and would unmute themselves. It's great hearing from you all.
We're so honored that you're doing this. This is, we just never thought about it until we heard from you, and it's just amazing what you're doing. Thank you for all your work.
Can say something now.
I am Mandolin Warfield Flanagan, and I've been introduced to the site because of my daughter, Leslie. We have some interesting questions. One being...
Well, tell them who you are.
I did.
You didn't tell them your relationship to why you're on here.
Oh, my daughter just reminded me that I am William Warfield's granddaughter, his oldest granddaughter.
I don't know who he is.
And that I happened to be born on his birthday also, which I find was an honor.
He is a soldier in World War I.
And he was in the World War I. And we've heard some interesting stories about him. One being that he saved the life of Eisenhower. I've met a couple of older men when I was younger who told me that they witnessed this event. There was a letter out, and I happened to run across it. It was a letter that my father had told me about, but I called about the letter. It was out in on the West Coast in some sort of historical house or an auction house. I called trying to get some information, but I never got it. I called a couple of times, and I wish with all my heart that I could get my hands on that letter from Eisenhower, who had contacted my grandfather while he was in the hospital. That's very important to us. I haven't the faintest idea who has it, but I am very curious about it. And this is my first time speaking with all of you regarding my grandfather.
He was a soldier in World War I, and he received the Croix de Guerre.
Now, my daughter is prompting me. She told me I forgot.
And the Distinguished Service Cross.
I forgot to tell you that he was a soldier in World War I. He just received the Distinguished Cross and the Croix de Guerre. And we have just been enormously proud within our family and the people that knew him. And I've met any number of people over the years that when I mentioned the name Warfield and being from Chicago.
Oh, thank you.
And being from Chicago, they tell me that they had a great deal of pride in his efforts in the war. And this happens to be a picture of him.
Oh, neat.
Thank you. So Richard Potter has a commentary that I'd like him to share with the group.
That's Ashley Wilbur.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. You have to unmute. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Yeah. Until yesterday, I wasn't aware that only one woman has been awarded the Medal of Honor. Mary Walker, who served during the Civil War. And I wondered if the center has any plans for digging into those kind of discrepancies related to gender and potential of being overlooked, similar to how minorities have been overlooked or discriminated against.
And Josh Weston can answer that. He answered in the chat, but why don't you just verbally respond? If you can unmute yourself.
Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. It's actually very difficult to hear right now. What was the question? Which one?
Oh, just the commentary about whether or not you can look into someone from the Civil War.
I'm sure there are ways to do so. Given that the records are so old, it would also pose challenges, just like World War I. But it's definitely something that I personally would be interested in doing, and I think it's a wonderful idea.
The U.S. Colored Troops group has tracked down a whole bunch of people from the Civil War and has some of those records online. United States Colored Troop, USCT, USCT.
So I'd like to recognize someone who's on here, if he can unmic. Retired General Edward Richardson. He goes by Rick Richardson. He is a native Hawaiian general from Hawaii and my Calabash uncle, and I'll say like a godfather to me. And he is the one that told me the story about how it was his initiative to recognize Senator Inouye that actually opened up the whole Valor Medals review for people of color. So he's on. Uncle Rick, are you able to unmute a microphone yourself so that we could hear part of your story? Because I found out he actually sacrificed his life too to give this award to Senator Inouye. Can you tell us the story of how you recognized him?
Well, I don't want to go on video, but
Okay.
and I don't want to take credit for doing that for the senator, because you know a lot of other people were involved in doing that. How I got involved was that we nominated him for the Harry S. Truman Award for the National Guard Association of the United States, and in the presentation of the award at the National Guard Memorial, we presented the trophy, the Harry S. Truman Award, before all of the senators in the U.S. Congress and their spouses at a reception that we had at the memorial. And they read off the citation that my staff had researched and prepared. And in the process of reading off the citation for the Harry S. Truman Award, people were just awed by what the senator had done in combat. And at the end of it all, there were numerous senators that came up and said, you know, that award should be higher than what it is now. I mean, he should be qualified for the Medal of Honor. And I'm not sure if that started the process, but anyway, he ended up getting it. So that was my involvement. My staff researched and prepared the presentation for the top National Guard Award, which is the Harry S. Truman Award for Senator Dan Inouye.
And wasn't it someone on your staff that actually did the research for the 22 or the other 21 Japanese Americans who were also recipients of medal?
The effort was a larger effort than I could take credit for, but the Veteran Services Department for the state of Hawaii was under the supervision of or administrative support of my department. And so we provided the help that made that effort possible. I'm trying not to take credit for something that a lot of other people did.
But thank you. You're the only one representing them, so I'm going to give you credit anyways. Thank you so much. So do we have any other questions in the chat? Laura, you want to unmic again?
Oh, just a quick comment, actually. When it was noted by Dr. Westcott, there was only one Asian in the being evaluated. I realized, I mean, of course, not everybody may be aware of this, but the Chinese Exclusion Act allowed no immigration, and then there was a relaxation of that, where then they allowed 100 Chinese from around the world in the country per year until about 1952. So, I mean, that may factor into why there were not too many Asians fighting in World War I.
If I could make a comment, I did notice that you didn't mention Pacific Islanders as part of the category for the research. You know, there was, I think, over 10,000 Pacific Islanders that participated in World War I. So I hope we're not.
They're included within Asian American group. So when Congress and the Robb Centre and the other organizations that founded this project were deciding the 5 groups, there are subgroups included. So Pacific Islanders.
Some people get very sensitive about that.
Some people do, yes, but that's just the language that was followed.
Okay, thank you. Janet?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. I see this is being recorded. Will it be available for us to see later or share with family members?
We can, we should, Janet, yes, we can do that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're having a new website come out in about a month. So we probably, which will be absolutely fantastic. Let me forewarn everyone. So what we'll probably try to do is wait until the new website is up. So the maximum viewing capability will be heightened because of the new technology.
Okay.
But Janet, your question poses a comment I just made. We publish a monthly newsletter, and then we also publish semi-annually the Valor magazine. And if you don't already receive those as either descendants of the project or as friends of the Robb Centre, you can just email me directly at the GSR Center at parc.edu. And center is not spelled the French, sort of the European way. That was the way the wealthy family desired it. Then we can put you on the mailing list and the email list. These are all virtual. So we can definitely get you on the list. So every month and every 6 months, you can keep up. Josh, if you want to unmute and video, you can go into some of our other social media components.
Yeah, definitely. As Dr. Westcott mentioned, we have a Twitter account, a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, as well as our own YouTube page that's just under the George S. Robb Center. We have the biannual magazine and the monthly newsletter. So we try to give out as much information as we possibly can on what we're doing as we're doing it, to be as transparent as possible.
Thanks, Josh.
So I want to give credit to the Robb Centre because this is the very first inaugural event that we're hosting, and honestly, it was a bit challenging, and we didn't know how it would turn out. But I think it's pretty fun to be able to see everyone, and for everyone to have the opportunity, to ask questions of the people speaking, and you know, we're having to get used to a strange new world. So, you know, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And again, I don't want to shut off. If anyone's got any more questions or comments, please feel free to share.
Rich Keller, Dr. Westcott, what was your greatest research challenge?
General Keller, I'm so glad you are attending. The greatest research challenge for this related project, as you well know, as being in a service, is the documented first-person validation of the act of valor. Because we are over 100 years ago, those first-person testimonials are what makes it difficult. And particularly related more probably to the enlisted ranks, our privates in our private first class. One of the first individuals that we did research on, and we had the pleasure to actually contact, I believe, a grandson. We found out that, and his act of valor was phenomenal. I really do wish we could find more information. But he was pulled out of school at the age of 7. And he was then forced somewhat to be employed in order to bring income into the family. You know, most of us probably on this video chat might not understand. I mean, when we found the documents, he signed every document with an X. He still could not read, and he could still not write. And I think from certain ranks of who was serving, that is where we're going to come into difficulty. You know, we have great letters, and you know, Dr. Emma's father is one of those, but you know, usually maybe probably in the officer corps, that's not quite as difficult, because most of the time they have some form of higher education. But that's also what the descendants are so supportive of, General Keller, is some descendants still hold letters and personal memorabilia that could help us to tell that story. And that's why, you know, we always appreciate engaging with those descendants. But it is the verification, I think, General Keller, that probably is the most difficult. You know, Josh does a wonderful job in finding weather, and, you know, God bless the Germans, because they kept meticulous records versus the French and some others. But it is that component that will, if we have any difficulty in moving anyone up for a possible recommendation, it's going to be the verification of the act of valor.
Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
Let's see. I think I just want to call people out to introduce yourself really quick.
Can I stick one thought in here while we have everybody here?
Yes.
I am a retired archivist, and I'm here to make a pitch. All that stuff in your cousin's attic, in your mother's attic, in your brother's attic, go get it. Do not let them trash it. You don't know when it's going to be useful to tell the story of not just of your family, but of the communities around you. Go get it. Don't let it get away from you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yvonne Dupree, and I agree exactly with what you said, Ms. Lipinski. I have newspaper clippings from 1937 of my grandfather's service in World War I. He was at Shell, France. this has been a journey because I've been doing this a while. And when my cousin Janet brought it up, I said, oh no, really? So I'm very excited to listen to everyone, gather this information, and hopefully we'll see where it goes. I'm really kind of emotional here right now, so I'm going to say bye.
As the university's associate archivist, Dr. Emma and I agree totally. We've had a number of stories that the houses will burn and everything just unfortunately goes up with it. You know, a lot of local or particularly local county, city museums can assist individuals to at least scan or make copies. So at least the family still has a copy maybe at the house. But as Dr. Emma will acknowledge, it's the originals that become so important. And, you know, with our archives at the university level, but we also have an archives here at the Robb Centre that we maintain that material. But yes, Dr. Emma and I would have to agree, don't keep it in the attics.
Well, I'm sort of a hoarder of old things. I've got documents or papers for almost this whole family back to 1900 maybe. And the problem is, as you say, trying to maintain these original scraps of paper is just very difficult. I have some that have Scotch tape on them, and that I understand that's not good for the papers themselves. So I will make more of an effort to preserve these and see to it that it's passed on to other family members.
And you know, you can always reach out to us.
In the chat, you'll find in the chat you'll find my email address. Please email me, and I'll help you think about how to make that stuff safe. Email Timothy Westcott. He'll help you think about how to make that stuff safe.
Yeah, we can do that also. I mean, we would have no issue with, you know, if somehow we can transmit the stuff, stuff safely. We will digitize it and then send all of it back to you original, but then also then provide some form of digitization copy, so you could, you know, share it with the other family members, but at the same time there would be a backup in a digitalized form, you know, if you don't mind, here, but also within your own family.
Right.
Yeah. So we are more than happy. Now it may take us a few months, but we are more than happy, you know, if we can get copies of the original, or we can try to, as Dr. Emma said, maybe preserve some of the stuff yet. And newspapers are some of the worst things to try to preserve because they're not the best paper.
One of the beautiful things is the original Distinguished Service Cross certificate is still with us, still in its original frame, has never been touched. So that part I'm extremely pleased about.
Yes.
Store it somewhere where there's no sunlight.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I see we have Greg Jackson of the American Legion. Did you want to say a few words? You're one of our sponsors. You can unmic.
No, I've just been really interested in listening to what everybody has to say. A lot of good information to glean from this, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for attending today.
And maybe Nathan will follow up after me. I mean, our connections to the American Legion, in which, just to let you know, I am a member of the Parkville chapter, or post, excuse me, and the VFW and the other military service organizations, you know, have been absolutely phenomenal. And the partnerships that we can create, you know, we've tried to reach out, and Ashlyn can address this too, to some of the local chapters of both the American Legion, or post, excuse me, and the VFW. We can pretty well track every service member that we are researching to a geographical region in which they may have been or could have been a member of the American Legion or the VFW. Now, we all know that some of those posts no longer exist that far back. So there are ways in which we can reach out. If someone believes that they would have a service member under review from a post, all they need to do, Mr. Jackson, is try to get a hold of us, and we'll try to connect.
I appreciate that. Like I said, this is a long time coming in doing this and making sure those people are recognized for that, their honors and service to this country. And both VFW and Legion's been around over 100 years. And it's vital that we work together in making these things happen and rectifying the past.
Yeah, and before I think Jocelyn may wrap us up here shortly, I would just mention and kind of reiterate, that in my remarks earlier, we cannot do this alone. I mean, this is a monumental task for a relatively small team of researchers with several others, expanded help within the committees and recommendation committees. But again, we invite you to support in whatever way you can, if that's personally, if that's sharing, information that you have, if that's connecting this team to foundations, organizations that need to know about this, because we continue to find the more we share and this progress and these personal stories that we've heard today, the more real it becomes. Even though it's more than 100 years, this was very real valor, and we just want to continue to do everything we can to support it. And the other thing I would mention is, we're fortunate, some have said, why Park University? Again, our history of serving the military is long and wide, and we're so proud of that. Also, Kansas City is unique in the sense that the VFW headquarters is here. We have the National World War I Museum and Memorial, who is also a good partner of the project and the university. And so we just, again, can't thank you enough for being here, and just want to continue to broaden our circle of friends, partners, and supporters. So thank you.
Yes, so I guess we'll be wrapping things up. We'll have one more word from President Smead, and this is kind of fun. It's like a family reunion of Valor Medal recipients, and so you should think of this as your Robb Centre Park University family, and we will be on some future calls together. President Smead.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I think that's a good way to wrap it up, that this has been a family and a memorable experience. I've enjoyed so much learning about your ancestors. Thank you for bringing that to light. And again, there are so many ways to get involved with this effort. And I couldn't be more proud of the leadership from the university and from those that work and serve here. So again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful afternoon and a terrific weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Leave the meeting. One new message. Oh, Emma.